Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto.
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name's Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our interviews with some of the most intelligent and influential people in the space help deliver you with value. And on this episode, we're joined by Camila Russo, founder of the Defiant and author of The Infinite Machine. In 2013, while working for Bloomberg in Argentina, Camila wrote an article about how Argentines were using Bitcoin to protect against currency controls and double-digit inflation. Since then, crypto has been on Camila's radar, and in 2019, she founded the Defiant, a media company focused on decentralized finance with the motto, essential content for the defying individual. Camila, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
Yay, thanks so much for having me, guys. Happy to be here.
Yeah, this is a treat having you on. And I want to start off by going back to your pre-crypto days. So you joined Bloomberg as an intern in 2010, where you worked with the emerging markets team. Were markets and finances always something that you hoped to cover as a journalist, or was that an opportunity that was presented to you?
That's a good question. It definitely wasn't something that I was always interested in. I got into journalism because I just love writing. I like telling stories, reading stories. And I thought, like economy, finance, that was never in my mind. But I started out as a journalist in one of Chile's biggest newspapers. I'm originally Chilean. I was covering international politics there. And I decided that I wanted to try to work in a big US media company. So that's why I applied for to get a master's in a US school, because I thought, that's the way to get to a big media company there. And that's how I went to Northwestern, got a master's there. And it was there that I initially became interested in business reporting. There was kind of you had to pick like a concentration. And there was politics, like environment, arts, and business. And I was like, I'm paying a lot of money to get this degree. I better learn something I have like no idea about. And I thought, all that other stuff, it's like easier to learn. Like I felt like I already knew some about all that, but I had no idea about business. So I took the business journalism class, and I actually really loved it. I thought, like what a great way to look at the world. Like it like really provides you really kind of great tools to tell stories very objectively, like through numbers, which is something that I hadn't done before. And I really liked it. And so I applied for an internship at Bloomberg from there.
So then you're working with Bloomberg, and as I mentioned in the bio there, 2013, you're in Argentina. And I saw another interview where you were kind of talking specifically about the currency controls in Argentina, specifically by Cristina Fernandez, who was at that time the president. Do you mind explaining what your experience was there and why? Just so maybe those who don't understand things like double-digit inflation and why people would be incentivized to look into something like Bitcoin.
Yeah. So my experience in Argentina definitely made a huge impact on me. And I think it's why kind of I got crypto so quickly. And And it's why kind of I still think it's such an important revolution in technology. So at my time there, and for background, I come from Chile. It's a country in South America, but it doesn't really, or at least hadn't up until this point, had like a very just like tumultuous history. At least like during my lifetime, like Chile was really stable. Things worked. Like we didn't have like super high inflation or anything. It was like, like everything was fine. You didn't have to worry about like inflation or currency controls or anything like that. So I didn't have that experience. So when I went to Argentina, the first thing my colleagues at Bloomberg told me was, as soon as you get your salary, because we earned in Argentine pesos, you need to turn it into dollars, like pay your rent and then turn the rest into dollars.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, like I wonder why. And then I quickly learned, there was double-digit inflation in Argentina, still is. And that means that, at that point, the inflation was 25%. So if you keep your pesos in the bank, they will be worth 25% less by the end of the year. So that's a huge chunk of your savings that are just being eroded, eroded away just by keeping it in the bank. So that's why everyone thinks in dollars. Like if you ask a taxi driver, anyone on the street, like they will know the exact dollar exchange rate that day. It's like just like a national obsession. So I was doing that, and it was fine. And then Cristina Fernandez got reelected, and I think it was like her first week in office. She comes on to give like a national address, and she often did this where like she stopped everything, like every TV channel had to cover what her announcement was. So I was there like at Bloomberg covering the announcement, sending headlines, and she announced, so from today on, nobody will be able to buy dollars anymore. And she just like imposed like the strictest currency controls the country had seen in like decades. And so I sent headlines, I wrote the story, and then I was like, wait, is that actually the case? Like, am I really not able to buy dollars anymore? And so I was used to kind of going to my bank online and having like my dollar account, my peso account, and just being able to transfer between my accounts. So I go and check, and like that option simply had disappeared. Like Crazy. It was just not there anymore. And I just felt so trapped. Like I still had like some pesos in my account, and I realized I can't buy dollars anymore. And that just like blew my mind. Like the fact that the government could come and tell me what I could or couldn't do with my money.
It's so crazy just hearing that perspective. Growing up in Canada, I feel like this is the way that it is for a lot of people who grow up in, say, America as well, or potentially other countries. But, we've grown up utilizing our dollar, our country's currency, and the thought of like such a high inflation rate or the need to convert our dollars into another currency in order to retain their value isn't something that like I personally have had to deal with. And just hearing it from, I've heard about that situation in Argentina. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to someone before who's kind of lived it. And it just seems so crazy to me. And then you think of crypto, and I can understand so much more, hearing it directly from someone who experienced it, why crypto would then become, this appealing solution almost to currency control and having those sort of restrictions put on you. It's crazy to think that, it's harder, I think, for people in our situation growing up where that isn't as much of an an issue, to then explain to them some of the sort of underlying values of cryptocurrency when we haven't had to necessarily deal with the same problems. It's like, well, why do I need to be my own bank when my bank's been doing a fine job before, right? And it's a harder maybe discussion to bring up and have people relate to. What are your thoughts on countries like Canada and the US, and will our inflation rates, I mean, there's a lot of talk around how inflation's going to skyrocket and that it is already accelerating. Do you think that America and Canada and maybe countries in similar positions are going to potentially experience the same type of inflation that Argentina's seen?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think yeah, like inflation is definitely picking up in the US and Canada because of all the money that's being pumped into the economy by central banks to stimulate the economy. But and that's causing some kind of price pressure. But I think you need to have like just a seriously chronically mismanaged, irresponsible government to cause something like double-digit inflation that the kind of you see in Argentina and Venezuela. I think the U.S. and Canadian governments are still like far from that, and there's also the issue of just dollar debt, and that like also plays into kind of the Argentine and Venezuelan mess, which at least the U.S. doesn't have to deal with kind of debt in like a different currency. It's also an issue, but even if like it's not double-digit inflation, I do think people in developed nations are starting to realize with the pace of inflation picking up that the value of their currency is being eroded over time, and that process is increasing. So it's not something as dramatic as like losing 25% of the value of your savings in 1 year. But it's something that you start to realize is happening over the course of many years, that the value of fiat currency is depreciating, and that's just being highlighted by all the trillions of dollars that are being printed. So I think it's kind of like prompting people to look at crypto for the first time in kind of another light, like. Before it used to be, or like 2017, it used to be like this casino place with not much else to it. But now people are starting to realize kind of the deeper meaning and like the actual kind of importance of having this parallel financial system that doesn't rely on any central bank, where there's no kind of monetary policy that can be manipulated, where the value of the currency can't be depreciated like that, and it's all managed by this like math or like cryptographic puzzle inside programmed into the system that just can't be gained. So I think that kind of proposition is starting to finally make its way into the mainstream.
And okay, so we're shifting into cryptocurrency a bit, and that sort of thing. Getting back to your story and how you got into crypto. Wade mentioned in the bio, you discovered Bitcoin as early as 2013, and you founded the Defiant in 2019. There's a 6-year gap there. So what was your involvement in the crypto space from your initial discovery up to founding the Defying in 2019?
Sure. So like I was saying earlier, I was covering the Argentine market from Buenos Aires with Bloomberg, and just the situation of inflation and currency controls, like, and then there was a debt default, like all of that just like occupied my time, covering like about all the different ways that investors were finding to protect themselves, and savers were finding to protect themselves. And so Bitcoin came up as one of them. So I wrote this story, and it was at a time when like half of the editors in the call when I pitched the story had no idea what Bitcoin was. The other half were like, no, like that's a scam. We're not writing about that. So I had to like really kind of convince Bloomberg to let me write that story. And then it obviously kind of paid off. It was like the most read story that week or whatever.
Nice.
Yeah. But after that, like I didn't like for a while, I always had like crypto on my radar. But I wasn't actually covering it day to day. I was, covering the rest of the Argentine market. But then and between then and 2017, when I covered crypto again, I spent like 2 years in Madrid covering European stocks, which after Argentina wasn't as exciting. So I was actually almost ready to leave Bloomberg at that point. I was just like not very kind of excited with what I was doing. And then it just happened that there was this new team in New York, Markets Live, covering macro markets. And I was invited to join that team. So came back to New York, and it was a really fun job. It was a live blog, like a Twitter feed, say, on the Bloomberg terminal. And the team there really had kind of the flexibility of writing about whatever looked interesting in the market. Mm-hmm. So this was 2017. I started obviously seeing the crypto blowing up. So I started writing a quick post about Bitcoin, ICOs, like the Winklevoss I remember had filed for their ETF again that year. So that was like that whole story. And then just like interest for anything crypto related grew in Bloomberg. Like it was like all readers wanted to see. So I was asked to cover crypto for the rest of Bloomberg, not just for the blog. And that's how it became at the time one of the few Bloomberg reporters face day to day. So that gave me really kind of a front seat view at the 2017 bubble. It was just like a crazy time. I mean, you guys saw it. It was really fun to cover. And, being at Bloomberg, I really had access to mainly just like anyone I called up, So I started learning more about the space, and I had always wanted to write a book. Like I said, I went into journalism because I like writing. So as a writer, like a book had like always been my dream, and I was like always on the lookout for, what that story could be. And by the end of 2017, I thought there has to be something here. Like this space is just so crazy, so interesting, that, there has to be a book here. And so thinking about it, I think Ethereum is the best story to tell that really hasn't been told. There were books about how Bitcoin was created, but there was nothing like that for Ethereum. And Ethereum, it was like the second biggest cryptocurrency. It had fueled much of the kind of boom of 2017 with ICOs. And it was like really at the forefront of innovation in the blockchain space. So I thought even if Ethereum doesn't win or like doesn't survive or whatever, it already kind of made history. So it's a book worth writing. So I pitched to write the history of Ethereum. and got a book deal with HarperCollins. And then I was like writing the book and at Bloomberg all through 2018. And then by early, like January 2019, I decided to leave Bloomberg to just like finish my book in the best way possible. And by that point, I had been there for 8 years. And so I decided, I needed a change. I wasn't sure what exactly I would do. I thought I would be a freelance writer and, write kind of feature stories about tech and finance for magazines, and finish my book. And then like I'd see what happens. But it turned out that as I was writing my book and going to like all of the Ethereum hackathons and conferences, I saw this ecosystem of financial applications being built on top of Ethereum, just emerging and like picking up steam. And I thought it was fascinating, like finally kind of the dream of crypto was being realized on Ethereum. Like I'm like not an Ethereum maximalist. I also like Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin, is digital gold. It's like the first thing people buy when they get into crypto. But the actual kind of like, financial services like savings, trading, lending, borrowing, like all of that was being built on Ethereum. And it was just mind blowing to me that nobody was really paying attention back in 2019. They're like, not even crypto media was paying attention. They weren't writing about DeFi. There were no DeFi newsletters or podcasts or really nothing. So I really saw an opportunity there to do that myself. And so that's how I started the Defiant as a daily newsletter, which I initially like my idea was to do it as a side thing. Like I would be like a freelance writer and then have this DeFi newsletter on the side. But then like the Defiant took over everything and decided to just like devote my time to it.
Well, the Defiant has become so massive in the space. So many people know about it. But a question I have for you, was that a difficult thing? So I know you mentioned you were up for a change and you wanted to be doing something different and you'd been focusing on this book. But still, to leave a reputable organization like Bloomberg, that's a big step to then launch your own thing, especially when you're not 100% sure what that's going to look like. Was that a little bit scary?
Oh, definitely. It was super scary. I thought about it for a long time, like I started thinking about it maybe like second half of 2018, like seriously thinking about leaving Bloomberg. So it was like in my mind, just like weighing the pros, weighing the cons. And I think like when what really kind of like pushed me to make the decision was that so Bloomberg had given me a few months of book leave, and that was coming up in January of 2019. And so it was like this pressure of, okay, like book leave is ending. I'm going to have to go back to work at Bloomberg. I still haven't finished my book. And it was like, okay, like that really kind of made like what's the final straw. Like no, like I need to focus on this, and like I didn't see much growth at the moment for me there. It was like, okay, like Bloomberg is great, like I have nothing kind of bad to say about it. I learned so much, like I was having a good time, but I was like, I'll just keep writing the same type of story over and over. Maybe I'll become a team leader, but there's not much more for me to do here. So I think that plus kind of wanting to finish the book and not wanting to do that part-time, that really kind of made it clear to me that it was time to go.
Ulf, do you realize that our audience has either been watching or listening to this episode for 20 minutes?
20 minutes? They should probably subscribe.
Yeah, they should subscribe and they should like and comment and hit that notifications bell.
Oh, and did you tell them about the NFTs?
That's right. We have our own NFT for our OG supporters. This is a way you can support our show, help us bring you continual great content. Information on that is below. So Camila, one of the goals of our show is to help educate an audience of people who are maybe new to the space and just with unintimidating content and explaining what things are and that type of thing. And so for those who are new to the space, you talked there about discovering DeFi in 2019 when a lot of people were sleeping on it. But maybe if you could just break down, like, what is decentralized finance? What is the definition of that? And why is it something that is worth an audience member paying attention to?
Sorry. Sure. Yes. Okay. So DeFi is the ecosystem of financial applications being built on open blockchains and without banks. So what this means is, you have all the financial services that you see in traditional finance being offered by financial institutions, being built as open source protocols in blockchains like Ethereum. And what this effectively means is that because they are just software, these financial applications are just software that's open and accessible to everyone. It means that anyone can access them because now that you have a global network as the layer, as like the rails for this new financial system to work on, it means that anyone in the world can access it. So I think, to me, that's one of the main things that make DeFi so exciting. Before or now still, obviously, the traditional financial system really relies on the infrastructure in place in each separate country. So Canada has its own financial system, its own stock exchange, its own currency. And people in Canada with Canadian bank accounts can invest in this closed financial system. The same happens in the US, the same happens in Argentina, and so on. Each country has its own closed off financial system. If you're in the US, maybe you don't think about this very much because you have access to all the world's biggest companies. You want to invest in Tesla and Facebook. You don't even think about kind of having to go to other currencies. The dollar works just fine. But in other countries, like in Chile, I don't know, my brother, he's always been super into stocks trading since he was a kid. I remember, and we grew up when social media was being just invented. I don't know, Facebook was a new thing. And I remember he was like, oh my God, if I could buy this stock, this thing is going to be huge. But if you're in Chile, you can't buy Facebook stock. You would need an account in a US bank, a US broker. And for a little kid like my brother, that's just no way you could do that. In a global financial system, anyone can buy the assets that are being traded there. Anyone can buy the stable coins, the currencies. Anyone can have access to savings accounts. Any financial services in the system are just accessible to anyone. And the other side to it is so they're accessible to anyone. And you're always in control is the other kind of important part. So because these are applications, software running on smart contracts, which smart contracts is a way of saying automated software on top of blockchains that are making these apps work, basically. So what's really cool and I don't know, revolutionary about this is that you are interacting with this software directly. Like there's no intermediary. You're not going to any like bank executive to give like hand them your money and they then deploy the money and like whatever. You are speaking with the smart contracts and like this computer code directly, and you are having control of your assets as you do this. So when you interact with DeFi applications, you do this through your wallet, your blockchain wallet, and when you put crypto in these wallets, they're non-custodial. So that means there's no third party custodying your crypto. You are in control of your crypto. You're in control of your private keys. And because of this, because you're in control of your private keys and your wallet, you don't have to trust any other third party with your funds or with your information. So you're not giving away your funds. You're not giving away your name, your email, your address, anything. You're just directly speaking and like interacting with these financial applications. And you can do that from Canada, from the US, from Argentina, from Zimbabwe. Like it doesn't matter where you are. And to me, that's just like incredible. It's like clearly the future. So
you can see the excitement when you start talking about DeFi and how powerful it is. And I feel the same way that, listening to you speak about it, it ignites the same feelings I have about DeFi. Blockchain has so many use cases, more that will emerge, and maybe we'll find there's other amazing potential for blockchain technology in different sectors, in the future. But I think DeFi, the reason, it might have taken a while to get the hype that it deserved, but it certainly took off at the very least in the summer of 2020. But yeah, it's crazy how empowering DeFi is. It really sort of hits the nail on the head with what blockchain can do. And so when we talk about how powerful DeFi is and all of its potential and how great and interesting it is, it always makes me think back to Bitcoin and Bitcoin maximalism. Bitcoin maximalism is a big thing. It's it seems to be growing, at least as I see it. As much as people are exploring other blockchains and other protocols and all the great things happening in the whole of the crypto space, there's also a lot that get interested. They're usually, the gateway is through Bitcoin because it gets all the news headlines. And a lot of people then don't leave Bitcoin, at least not for a long time. They decide Bitcoin is the one and only, and it's all that's needed. But Bitcoin in itself is not DeFi. You could argue that Bitcoin is one aspect of DeFi, one very small aspect of DeFi. But without all of the things that Ethereum and these other blockchains are now doing in the DeFi space as well, I mean, you wouldn't be able to borrow, lend, derivatives, all these other potential things that you can do in the decentralized finance space. So my question to you is, what are your thoughts on Bitcoin maximalism and relating that back to decentralized finance?
Yeah, I think, Bitcoin maximalism, it's really unfortunate for them, like for the maximalists. Like they really are losing out on the most interesting, like some of the most interesting innovations in blockchain technology. They're missing out, and they're potentially causing others to miss out as they're kind of like loudly advocating for Bitcoin as like the only valid thing in the blockchain space. So yeah, I think it's really hurtful. Any sort of maximalism. I think it's in not just blockchain, but like in any aspect of like human life. I think I think it's better to be open-minded and just like intellectually curious about other things that you might not be aware of, and like why close yourself off to the world. But I think it's interesting kind of why crypto just incentivizes this sort of behavior, because you see it not only in Bitcoin, but in any just like successful blockchain network or community. You see this, tribalism, this behavior. You see it in Ethereum as well. You see it in even like application tokens, like Chainlink Marines are like famous for being like just like ferociously advocating for Link, and you start seeing kind of these communities emerge, like Uniswap versus SushiSwap, and like all these things, and I think it's you have this phenomenon where you have a highly incentivized community because of the nature of blockchain, which is they have a cryptocurrency on top to incentivize the network, and it incentivizes miners to secure the network, and it like indirectly incentivizes holders to protect the value of their currency. So I don't know if like consciously or unconsciously, Bitcoin holders or Ethereum holders will see any other cryptocurrency as competition to their own holdings. So they will feel very, very protective of it and just like shut everything out. But I mean, to me, it's like, you don't have to own just one coin. You can explore on other coins and benefit from the growth of other parts of the system as well. I think that's what will end up happening. And if not, I think just like the space will continue to grow, and we'll have more agnostic players in this space that are, in it just like for because they want to use these applications and not so much hold like big bags of these tokens. And we'll probably start to see the space diversify in its kinds of users. So I think maximalists will be a smaller and smaller percentage of the people in the crypto space. Hopefully, like 20 years from now, we'll say like, oh, remember when we had like these crazy maximalists in the early days of blockchain? I think like that in the long term, just like it just like won't make any sense.
That's such a good point, Camila. And there's one thing that you've said in the past that I just have so much respect for. And I think that goes back to your roots as a journalist. And you were in an interview and you were asked about kind of coins you own and invest in. You said, I think journalists make the worst investors because, we were told, you shouldn't own something that you're reporting on or you're talking about, or there's a certain level of ethics. When in the crypto space, it seems like it's the complete opposite. And I'm not saying that the information sources are journalists per se, but there's a lot of maybe crypto influencers or people who have, like us, a YouTube channel or a podcast or something like that. And they are aiming to educate, but a lot of times there's almost this attitude of they do own the coins and or whatever that they're talking about. And I've seen it where they will say, don't worry, I'd never tell you about a coin that I don't personally own. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't know that that's better, or that because if anything, the ethics are questionable. Like It would be better if you didn't own it, but you were talking about it because the project's so great. At least that's where my mind goes. What I want to know, or what I'm curious about, is what are your thoughts on the ethics of the space? Do you think that there is an issue with that type of thing, of people who are presenting the information having their own selfish incentivization behind it, or do you think that that's just something that goes along with the territory?
There's so much there. I think it's important to always disclose what your investments are, and also kind of what your role is, because I think it's very different if you are presenting yourself as a journalist, like as a media company, or like as an information source, than if you're presenting yourself as a individual with an opinion. So I think like all those things need to be made clear to your audience. If you are presenting yourself as a journalist, or if your organization looks like and like talks like a media company, I think you at the very least, like the audience expects objectivity from journalists. I mean, that's kind of what they're here to do. They're here to report on the news in an unbiased way. They're not here to promote anything. They're here to just present the news. So that's kind of the expectation that the audience comes to when they go to a media source. So I don't think it's fair to audience members who are going to a media source expecting to have objective news when in reality what's happening there is that the author has other interests in mind, whether that's their own bags, like their own investments, or whether that's some project paid them to talk about them. And that happens so often in crypto, that media companies in this space are being paid to talk about the different projects they're talking about. I see it all the time at the Defiant. We get pitched every day how much for you to like review our project, and every day is like, we don't do that. Like, we do have sponsors, but there's a clear line between editorial content and ads. They just like do not mix. But that's not the case for many other publications. And when it comes to just like influencers or like non-journalists, I think then like the ethics there is just like being very clear, like you're not doing journalism, and this is kind of what your portfolio looks like. I think as long as there's disclosure, then the audience can kind of decide like, what to believe, or like where they should take the content with a grain of salt.
Yeah, 100%. And so then thinking about who represents the Defiant and that kind of thing, because I think the term media company is used, and that's accurate, because you think about all of the things happening. It's a podcast, it's a YouTube channel, it's a newsletter, it's a blog with great articles. But for you, what is that process of making sure that you're bringing on, because it can't just be you creating all of that content, so you have others who are helping you, part of your team, but is that something that's important to you when you're kind of vetting those individuals or bringing people on, that they share those ethics?
Oh, definitely. So right now, it's so crazy. Like I went from writing every single thing on the Defiant, like it was just myself, to now I'm to like writing some, editing others. Then like I was like editing everything, and now I'm not even editing everything.
Good for you.
It's been crazy. So yeah, I have a team of writers and editors at this point, two full-time writers and two part-time editors, and I have also like a group of contributing writers. And so it's tricky because I have more control over my staff. Like there are like editorial guidelines. There's like investment guidelines. Like for my team, we are openly bullish DeFi. So we think DeFi is the future, but we aim to cover it objectively. So we're not kind of picking any sides, like any chain or coin or anything. So because we're like objectively covering the space, but pro the space, I don't see a conflict in owning kind of the base layers of DeFi. So you can own Bitcoin, you can own Ethereum, Solana, like just like the base layers where DeFi is being built. As long as there's like actual kind of DeFi applications being built on those layers, I think it's fine to just be invested in the sector as a whole. Owning like index style tokens that invest in like a broad array of DeFi tokens, I think is also fair. But just like holding like a huge bag of like a specific token, I think that's not like kosher. So that's kind of like our editorial guidelines. But it's harder. Like I can't tell like outside contributors what they can and can't own. So there, the line is more making sure that the piece that they've contributed is objective. Like whenever I see there's a piece that's like very skewed towards one project, I'm like, okay, like, what's your relationship with this project? I asked, and this like happens pretty often. Like somebody pitches like X story, like, oh, I'm going to write about the importance of DEXs, and the thing comes in, and it's like, why sushi is the greatest DEX ever, for example. And so I'm like, okay, like if you want to write about this, you need to include like all the different DEXs. So I send back the piece, and like sometimes like they get it, and they turn back, like they file back like an actually kind of balanced piece, and then we publish it. If it takes like a couple of like revisions and still, you know, it isn't like an actually objective piece, and I end up saying, you know, like, I don't think this is a good fit. But it is like a really hard balance, and it takes kind of like news judgment, editorial judgment to look at a piece and say, this seems like it's like promoting something, or this seems objective.
Yeah, no doubt that's got to be somewhat difficult to manage.
Yeah.
Moving on to your book, The Infinite Machine, it's all about Ethereum, its history. What inspired you to sort of write about Ethereum? I mean, you mentioned earlier just that it was kind of like the number 2, and it already had a big story. Was there any more to it, maybe from like a personal factor? You know, were you an investor who really saw the potential and really loved what Ethereum had over other blockchains?
Well, I mean, I it's interesting. Like I didn't actually buy ETH until I think after I finished the book. Like I was a no coiner all through kind of my time at Bloomberg. And
that's so fun. I wanted to ask you that question, but I didn't want to break in earlier. I'm like, you've been in this so long and like writing about it, but were you an investor?
But like, I have respect for that. Yeah.
Like everyone's become a millionaire, and meanwhile I'm still kind of on my reporter salary. No, but I mean it's crazy. Like my ETH, like 99% of my ETH holdings came from a gift from a reader. And this is public. Like I published this post because this anonymous reader of the Defiant said, hey, like I want to make a contribution for the Defiant and for the Infinite Machine. And I'm like, no, like you're good. Like you can just like promote on Twitter, just like share with friends. And he's like, no. Like I want to really kind of make a gift. So I was like, okay, fine. I gave him my ETH address. And then like the next day, there's like 64 ETH in my wallet.
Awesome.
And and the number is because like 32. He wanted me to start running my own node, or like become a validator. So that's kind of what where that ETH came from. And then like the other crypto I own is like airdrops. Like I was like, I'm always like testing DeFi and like playing around with this stuff. So it's like I'm using this stuff, and so that makes me eligible for like airdrops. So like Uniswap, Gitcoin, like I don't know, pulled together. So it's a weird, like all the, like I'd say like really over 90% of the crypto I own, I didn't really buy. Like I was like gifted everything. So that's turned out.
I hope you win a pool together. Like that would be just perfect if you had a pool together and you won one of the large. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah. No. So yeah, that's turned out well. But
I feel like we need to take a second to just acknowledge how awesome airdrops are. For those
my God.
If you're not an investor, here's another reason to go beyond Bitcoin. You get into these other projects and
you get free money.
You might wake up one morning and all of a sudden you've been airdropped a gift from the crypto Santa and here it is. Bunch of free money. Yeah,
it's amazing. And like also like talking about like emerging markets, like we were before, like that's kind of life-changing money for people in emerging markets. Like, okay, like if you're in the US, you get $1,000 in uni. That's awesome. Like, okay, fine. But like for someone in Argentina, like I spoken with people who like, they were able to like fix their house, like put a roof over their heads, like actually like from airdrop. So not to kind of I mean, airdrops are great. That's the bottom line. I like Ethereum. It was definitely not because I was an investor. It was really just, seeing kind of, it was more like from a writer perspective, like what's the most interesting story here? Ethereum was one of the biggest stories in blockchain. And there was also the advantage of having the founder, like the creator right there. Unlike in Bitcoin where we don't know who Satoshi is. In Ethereum, you have Vitalik, who is very public and a very interesting character for a book. So I don't know. I just thought it was perfect. There's like a lot of drama in the story, like founders fighting with each other. It's like a very kind of classic startup story as well. Just like the egos, the struggles early on, just like the mess with investors, like all that, which I think is just like makes for a very entertaining read. So that's kind of the story I wanted to tell. Like not just a story about blockchain and like how it worked technically and like how Ethereum works and like the potential, but just like an interesting story about people and like drama and like human intentions and emotions and like all of that is there in the Ethereum story.
So diving into ETH a little bit deeper, we've had a few guests on, especially earlier in the year. We had Anthony Sassano, we had David Hoffman, a couple people who kind of broke down this, what is the roadmap, Cole's Notes version and where we're headed and that kind of thing. Is it possible, just for the benefit of our audience, of just kind of an updated version from your perspective of kind of where ETH's at right now and some of the maybe the milestones that are up ahead?
ETH is at such an interesting point right now. So right now, what we've seen is just the huge demand that there is for the applications being built on Ethereum. With DeFi taking off and then NFTs taking off, like all the most interesting, exciting innovation in blockchain is happening on Ethereum. And that has obviously put a huge strain on the network. It's made transactions really expensive and really slow at times. Now things are getting better. But yeah, there was like a time this year where like a simple transaction like wouldn't cost you less than $100. So the good thing is that scaling solutions, which were, a research project for so long, are now actually coming live and working, and attracting billions in volume. So you have a Polygon, this sidechain for Ethereum. There's Optimism and Arbitrum with like optimistic rollups. There's this like CK rollups. There's just like all these different scaling solutions that are actually working, and just making transacting with DeFi so much better. If you're able to get on these applications and like get used to that, because that's kind of one roadblock. It's still like really hard to do, to just like go from ETH to like these layer twos. But it's very early days. The good thing is that for Ethereum, like Ethereum is already scaling. So that's kind of where we're at now. Like Ethereum is scaling, and that's getting easier to do. The next kind of big milestone that Ethereum has coming up is the implementation of EIP 1559, which is a huge deal. I think it's the biggest change on Ethereum, probably, I don't know, in ever or in a long time, maybe since like the DAO fork. But it's a huge deal because it changes how gas is calculated. So gas is what you pay to transact on Ethereum, and it's really volatile. Like you're never sure how much gas your transaction will cost. So you have to have like a max amount that you're willing to pay and a minimum, and you're not sure right now if your transaction will be approved or not, and it's all like really kind of hard, and volatile for the user. With this new implementation, it will be there will be a lot less uncertainty on the amount of gas that you have to pay, and if your transactions will be confirmed or not. Like it's you'll have like an amount that you need to pay, and if you pay that, your transaction will be confirmed. So it'll be like a much simpler user experience. And from like the ETH holder side, everyone is really excited about this because as part of this new change, part of the transaction fee that's paid in ETH will be burned. So that means that as use of the Ethereum blockchain increases, more and more ETH will be burned. And so, of course, laws of supply and demand, if there is less supply of ETH at equal or like growing demand, then price of ETH should increase. So, people are saying this is super bullish for ETH, but it really does depend on whether the actual demand for ETH increases too, whether the price will be affected or not. So that's coming up in August. So right now. And then the other kind of huge milestone that's happening is the merge. So the Ethereum application layer, so where like all the applications are being built right now, is going to merge with the Ethereum proof of stake chain. So right now there's a proof of stake chain, and that's a blockchain that's based on people staking cryptocurrency to the blockchain, instead of dedicating like mining power, like electricity, to the blockchain, like proof of work. So it's a much more like environmentally friendly solution for blockchains. So that chain, like the proof of stake chain, is already running. You can already go and stake your ETH there, but it doesn't really do anything. Like you can't even withdraw your ETH. You can't transact ETH. There's like no applications there. It's just like a dumb proof of stake chain. So what will happen? We're not sure when. Like the most optimistic estimates have that happening by the end of the year. I highly doubt that's going to happen because like everything in Ethereum is always delayed. But maybe sometime next year, the Ethereum application layer will combine with the proof of stake chain so that Ethereum will become a proof of stake blockchain. So that's the other kind of huge thing to look forward to. And of course, like in that time, obviously, I think all the scaling solutions will continue to grow and evolve and hopefully become friendlier. So I think by next year, we will have a much more mature, and a much more scalable Ethereum chain and a much more green Ethereum chain as well.
And for those listening who aren't so familiar, that's the move, that's the transition from ETH1 to ETH2 as it's being labeled, in case that wasn't clear. What are your thoughts on NFTs? They've been blowing up this year. It's been crazy. Even like the situation we're in over the last few months where the whole of crypto is seeing a major dip. NFTs values and a lot of NFTs still continue to be on the rise, and their notoriety is only growing. What are your thoughts?
I was so surprised to see how NFTs took off. Like, who knew it was this what would bring in this new wave of users to blockchain? I think they're awesome. I think NFTs might be or might have been in a bubble for sure. You saw like all these like ridiculous prices for a single NFT, like multiple $1 million. You see like all these like crazy projects. There's like bananas, poop. There was like this like poop NFT. There's I don't know, just like we have like the story on the Defiant of like all the like recent crazy NFT stories. There's like this X-rated one as well. I don't know, just like crazy, like similar to ACOs. Like you have like this just explosion where people are coming to create anything and everything and make it into an NFT. Regardless, like it could very well be that it's a bubble right now, but obviously, and this is like a cliche at this point to say, but like the technology, like the innovation behind NFTs, I think is here to stay, because what it really is, it's allowing anyone to own a digital asset, ownership of digital assets, and that's a huge thing that wasn't really possible before. So before, you have a JPEG on the internet and nobody can own it, that it can be infinitely reproduced, sent over, modified, same with an MP3 or an MP4, like any digital file, nobody could own it really. And so that's why, you have like all these like pirating sites and the issue there is that the one who loses the most is the creator of those pieces, like the artist, the musician, the meme creator, like creators online were losing out on the value of their productions, and that's what NFTs fix. They are able to attach ownership to these pieces by attaching a token, like linking this metadata, this file to a token that's in a blockchain and has all the like transaction information in there, where you can prove that your wallet, so like that you own this piece of information. And that's really allowed creators to monetize their productions for the first time, or at a level that like wasn't seen before. So I think that's here to stay, and I think it's we're seeing kind of one of many applications of this. Like I think property rights is like an obvious next one, and you know, who knows what else, but it's like one of the most exciting developments for sure.
Earlier in the conversation, Camila, you mentioned that 2017 and the bubble, early 2018, was a fascinating time to be covering the space and that kind of thing. In terms of where we're at right now in the market cycle, do you have any theories on it, or is it one of those things? Because people like to, you know, throw around, you know, terms like super cycle or 4-year cycle or different things like that. What are your thoughts, or you just have no opinion on it, or what is your theory?
I have no idea on like where we are in the cycle. But what I do know is that to me, like it doesn't really matter that much if we're starting a bear market or in the middle of a bull market or in the middle of a super cycle. To me, like there will be a lot of volatility in crypto. But the long-term trend will be up. I think that's kind of just like a very like my simple way of looking at this. Like I see all the innovation that's going on. I see how revolutionary this technology is. I see how much better it is. And specifically just like looking at finance. If like the only thing that crypto does is disrupt finance, that's a huge thing. And just like make a global financial system, that's huge. And I think that will happen. I think more and more of the financial system will be on blockchains and through crypto. And this is just beginning. So TVL in Ethereum DeFi was at 70 billion. That is just such a small drop in the bucket within global finance that the growth potential is huge. So I know that number will continue to increase. I know volumes will continue to increase. Users will continue to increase. So I look at crypto in kind of just like a long-term horizon. Like I'm here to stay. I'm here to build the Defiant into the Bloomberg of DeFi. So I'm here for the long term. So to me, kind of like the short-term ups and downs are interesting to cover as a journalist. But as like someone who's just like in crypto, that like doesn't really concern me. I'm looking at kind of the long-term view.
Awesome. And the last question before we get to the kind of final section of this, with regard to books and writing books, will you write a second book? Is that on the horizon? And if so, what topic would you be interested in covering?
I would love to write a second book. It's not in the immediate horizon because I haven't actually started writing it. But it's definitely something I would want to do. And I see it as like part 2 of the Infinite Machine, or just like covering what has happened since. So it would be a book focusing on DeFi and all the just like amazing stories that I've seen in the space. I'm still finding kind of where that narrative arc is. I still think like it's missing some sort of like climax, like, I don't know, a big kind of boom or bust or like hack or I don't know, something huge to happen. So I'm kind of like wanting to see where that kind of arc unfolds. I also need to kind of make sure that the Defiant can run well with me kind of taking time to write a book. But yeah, it's getting there. I definitely hope to have a second book out there I don't know, sometime.
Love it. Love it. Camila, this has been an awesome conversation. So much, you've done a great job of just explaining things that can be very complex and into simple terms. We like to end every episode of Show Me the Crypto with a 3-question segment that we ask every guest, and we call it You Had Me at Crypto. So Ulf's going to ask you those questions.
All right, you ready for this?
Okay, yeah. Let's do it.
It's not too difficult. All right, the first question. Who's your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
That's tough. Let's see. I think probably Vitalik. I think he's just like, he has a good mix of just like really heady research pieces and just like humor, and he also like just like talks about like non-crypto stuff sometimes. And yeah, I think it's like if you want to know what's happening in Ethereum, which I think is like where I spend a lot of my time, because that's where a lot of DeFi is. I think Vitalik is like a must follow.
All right, and question 2: what will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now?
I hate making price predictions. I don't know.
Well, luckily we're giving you a 10-year horizon, so I mean, like, you can be right or wrong. It's not.
Camila, we're gonna come find you in July 2031 and be like, you said this.
Bitcoin is not $1 million. I don't know. Let's go with 1 million.
All right. All right. Question 3: what's the most underrated coin or project in all of crypto?
No, I don't like talking about specific projects.
But this is just underrated. We're not asking for a favorite or anything.
And honestly, we'll give you a pass if you want to say DeFi, because I like if that's what you believe, kind of, or it can be a sector kind of thing.
Underrated. Well, actually, I think more attention should be given to identity in crypto. Like, I think that's kind of such a huge missing piece that I wish kind of more people were working on that.
Awesome. Good stuff. Camila, this has been an awesome conversation. We have so much respect for what you're doing and your ethics in the space and what you've built, and we're excited to see where things go. But thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Show Me the Crypto.
No, thank you guys. This was super fun.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.